understand how we communicate both through what we do and what we say. And to talk more about that, we have the fantastic Mairi McHaffie joining us, and she is the CEO of Scene Change, which is really all about helping organizations, leaders, and teams work better together. So please join me for her We Are Communicators talk.
Work it, absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Mairi, and there I am up there with that weird spelling. So it's Mairi, rhymes with Barry, will you marry me? It's one of those names that nobody can spell and nobody can say, even if you're Scottish. And the first rule of communication is making sure you're understood. So Mairi rhymes with Barry. So for the next 20 minutes, we're just going to explore what communication is and what good communication is, what's effective communication. We're going to practice some simple techniques, and we're going to come away with some simple tools that you can use immediately to influence yourselves and other people. So communication happens when our brains encode information that we want to share. And then we transfer that information either verbally, physically, or by the written word through different mediums to a receiver, which is the other person or the other people, who then decodes that information. So as adults, we have the responsibility for the messages that we're putting out. We live in the age of communication, and we have to manage those communications very carefully. Because if we don't manage them, someone else will for us. Particularly now that we're all on social media and that we're emailing. And we're having a preference to email rather than actually have a conversation with another human being. So we have to ensure that the message that we are giving out is being understood the way that we intended. And I've got that picture of the crying baby there because there's been so many times, I've got 2 children now, that I have been up late at night, jiggling crying babies around, thinking that they were cold or too hot, when actually they were crying because they were hungry. So we know how to do this. We've known how to do this since we were born, how to communicate, how to get what we want. Right, so why we communicate? Why do we communicate? Well, we communicate to convey a message. So the first thing about thinking about how we're communicating, whether that is physically, whether it's verbally, whether it's with the written word, is what is your intention with that communication? What's the desired outcome? And then why are we doing it? What's the message? Why are we doing it? What do we want to achieve? And who are we communicating to? Are we communicating to an individual? Is it our boss? Is it someone in our peer group? Is it a group of people? Is it a client? Really thinking about the other person. Very important to think about your audience. It's not always just about you, it's about them. And I know a lot of people, I hear people talking about networking and how they don't like networking. I feel very self-conscious, I don't know what to say. If you concentrate on the other person, that's a top tip, concentrate on the other person and how they're experiencing you, it will be a lot easier. We all want to be able to feel comfortable, and if you can make another person feel comfortable, then you're going to get a lot more of that out of that communication. So we have to think about who's the audience and what is their style. It's particularly in a one-to-one situation. And another tip is, if you hear people talking about, very often they'll say, how does that look to you? And someone else might say, how does that sound? Someone else might say, how does that feel? Then you can pretty much almost be guaranteed about the style that that person likes to be communicated in. So I am a very emotional person, so I use the word feel all the time. I use it about 200 times a day. How do I feel? How do you feel? How does that feel? So when people are communicating with me, I'm probably more likely to be interested in the impact of a topic that will have on other people. It's all about the people with me. It will have an impact on how it makes people feel. So those are probably, if someone is coming to giving me a presentation or pitching to me, I want to know about the people. So there's signs when you build relationships with people to listen to the language that they use, because that's the kind of way they want to be communicated to. And this isn't about being unauthentic, it's about being authentic, but thinking about the other person. How do they want to hear it? Because they're more likely to hear your message if you're speaking in the right language, in their language. So once you've clarified the purpose of what it is that you want to talk about, or the message that you want to convey, it's not always about talking, we then want to think about how we're going to do that. So we are communicating all the time. You, even although you're sitting there, not saying anything, are communicating with me right now. So it's being aware of how much we're communicating and the signals that we're giving out all the time. You have the power to influence other people. Very powerful. To think about what you say, what you do, how you present yourself. It's very powerful that you have the power to influence other people. And it's about increasing self-awareness. We don't really get enough feedback on that. And we're trying more now. We're practicing mindfulness. Lots of people are doing yoga, Pilates. We're into the gym. So we're becoming more aware of what this is and the message that it's giving out. It's about checking in with yourself and measuring how you are potentially impacting on other people at that time. Because it can be a make or break. And we'll talk about that in a minute. It can affect how other people respond to you, and it can affect your outcomes. So it's thinking about that. How am I communicating? What are people getting from me? How am I coming across? And the great thing is that we do have some control over that. It's about being mindful of our behaviours. So thinking about the different ways that we communicate, it's about what we say, it's about how we say it, and it's about how we show it. So obviously with written information, that communication, there's different ways of doing that. Factual briefing will be very different from a political one, because then that you have to get some influencing skills into that. An internal memo will be different from a client pack. And very often on slides and in packs, when we're showing information, it's also about whether people are visual or whether they want to hear it or whether they want to see it. And sometimes a picture can say 1,000 words. And here's another top tip when you're doing a presentation. You are Batman, the slides are Robin. They're there to support you. So, and I know a lot of people don't like doing presentations, and I understand that, so they cover their presentations in lots of words and lots of pictures so that they think that that's just going to fool everybody into looking at that and not looking at them. Well, we're all human beings. We actually prefer to look at a human being. So it's about having the confidence to allow the slides to support you when you're doing a presentation. And then there's verbal communication. And I know I hear a lot with people that I work with, lots of women in particular, younger women saying, I just can't get a word in edgeways at meetings. I don't feel as though I've got enough to say. I'm not the expert in the room. And we've talked about imposter syndrome this morning. The way around that is to ask quality questions. Very easy way of doing it. And if anyone's been on a coaching course or can get access to a coaching course, you'll learn more about what those questions are. So when you're sitting with what you feel is a panel of experts, why not ask some open questions? What do we think about this? What do you think about this? Asking one of the senior leaders. How does that land with you? Because by goodness, they will want to talk about it. Clarification questions. So if you've been given a project and you're not entirely sure if you've completely understood it, why not say, I just want to feedback my understanding of what you've asked me to do? Because what comes out of one person's mouth and goes into the stratosphere, all that data, and lands in the other person's head, sometimes the message can be lost. So to clarify, let me just feedback what I've understood about that, so that you're not wasting your time with that communication. Powerful questions. What other options have we got here? What does success look like? Speaking to senior leaders. What's success for you right now, the next few months? Open questions, really powerful. And you don't have to be the expert. And then there's the physical communication. And we make our minds up about whether someone is a friend or a foe in the first 80 seconds of meeting them. And actually, it's only 10 seconds. It's 10 seconds we decide whether this person is a friend or foe, and then we spend the next 70 seconds qualifying what we've already decided, looking for signals. And again, that is being mitigated a lot by the unconscious bias training that we have. Nowadays, we're all being much more mindful of that, but we do make those decisions because it all comes down to the fact when we were in caveman days and we were crawling out of the caves deciding whether this person was going to eat us or help us hunt. So, just want to draw your attention to that phrase. I didn't kiss my boss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ladies in the front row. Can I borrow you for a second? There's 6 of you, so you can decide. Right, you come forward in your beautiful coral dress. What I want each of you to do, I'm going to number you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So number 1, you're going to stress the word I when you say that sentence. Number 2, stress the word didn't, and as we go along. So you've got kiss, my, and boss. So I want you to say the sentence to the room and stress the word that I've given you. And I'll give you the mic.
I didn't kiss my boss.
I didn't kiss my boss.
I didn't kiss my boss. I didn't kiss my boss. I didn't kiss my boss.
Lovely. Thank you very much, ladies. So you can see from that simple sentence how many different ways it can be interpreted. So if you think about when you're sending that email, how many times have you sent an email? I need to be here, don't I? You've sent an email and you've checked over and over again to see if it's got the right tone of voice. Doesn't have a tone of voice. You send me an email, I can decide what that says to me. I will interpret that. We can't always be in front of other people, but if you can do face-to-face, if you can get in front of another person and have that personal communication, it is much simpler and it mitigates any of the troubles of me deciding what you've said, even although that's not what you intended. Again, the next best thing is to use the phone because we have a tone of voice there, which we don't have on texts and emails. And we're hiding behind emails because we think that's the best way to, the best use of our time. But very often, you have to clarify that email over and over again instead of just going to see the person, particularly if you're in the same room as them. I'm just going to move on a little bit because I think I've got 5 minutes left. I could do so much more. So my background, I don't know if you've got it in your notes, but I was originally an actor, and I still do bits of that, and I also do leadership coaching. So as actors, when we're given a character, we're given a play, and you look at the stuff on the piece of paper, you then have to decide what's my interpretation of that character. How do they walk? How do they talk? Okay, they've had a hard life. Why have they had a hard life? What does that do to them physically? So you don't just walk out onto the stage saying the lines. You have to think about everything else that's going with that. And it's about tone of voice. Do they talk loudly? Do they talk quietly? Are they nervous? What does that mean? How do you show that? So thinking about that, again, it's about authenticity. It's not about a performance and being somebody else, but thinking about when I have to influence somebody, how do I want them to see me? What kind of voice do I have? And I'll tell you another thing for a tip. When When we're nervous, and particularly women, we tend to get very breathy, and our voice goes up and up and up, and up, and up. And then finally, we can't even hear ourselves. And the tip to help you with that is just before you ever have to get into a situation like that, just take some deep breaths. And this is drama school. This is what we do before we go out on a stage. Breathing in for 3, blowing out for 10. We can all do that. You can lock yourself in the loos and do that. Just to calm everything down, because what that does is it floods your brain with oxygen, it lowers all your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, and it also lowers the tone of your voice, which makes it much more interesting to listen to. So I could be doing some power posing here. I don't know if we've got time, Vanessa or anyone else, but what I want to do now is just, again, to sort of highlight what we're talking about that body language. So you've met me now. I've been talking for a few minutes. How do you feel about me? What? Bored? Not interested? Quite comfy. All I've done is what we all do. I've folded my arms and I have landed myself on one hip. But you have had a reaction. I haven't changed my personality. All I've done is stand in a different way. So if you passed me in the corridor and I was the new person or the new leader, you might have thought, check her out. And how many times have we said, I don't know what it is about her, just don't like the look of her. We do that. So this is for you to just think about, the next time you stand like that, how is that coming across? And you may not, the message is not intended. It's another one. How do you feel about me?
Quite quiet.
Fine. Shy. Again, a lot of us stand like this. We go, I don't know what to do with my hands. I haven't got any pockets. Thank God for pockets. Pockets now, it's really fashionable. Pockets and dresses. We do that. And then we apologise for ourselves. And particularly if you're tall. It's awful. So it's about learning to be neutral. Try not to give out messages that you don't want to give out. The other thing is, and I'll leave you with this, is what I call resting screensaver face. There is another term for it. We're in a professional environment here, so we'll mention that. So here's mine. Terrible, isn't it? Just awful. It's like a passport. But again, we're like this a lot of the time. You're standing in the lift. So if you want to influence members of staff, your peers, senior leaders, it's thinking about how you are coming across. Not all the time. Of course, we all want to stand like that sometimes, and we all do. But when you're in a position where you want to have that powerful communication, think about that. I think we've got Andy coming up next, and I've probably gone over. Someone's going, yes. So last point is your internal attitude affects how other people feel about you and how they experience you. So again, when you have to influence other people, think about what is going on inside. Shouting at the kids to get their shoes on 15 million times. That's what happened to me this morning. And then you bring that to work with you. So thinking about how am I feeling here? I'm actually feeling a bit stressed. I'm feeling, I don't want to be here. It all affects us physically. And then we have to go into that meeting. Then we have to go and speak to those clients. So check into yourself. Try and park whatever's going on at the door. You can go and lock yourself in a cupboard later and fall apart and cry. But just for that moment, think about, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to be a 10. Think of my status as a 10, just for these few minutes when I have to influence that other person. Smiling as well makes a big difference. There's also scientific studies now to show that this actually creates good endorphins in our bodies. It makes us healthier. So again, just practicing smiling. Not like that all the time, but smiling for yourself. So thank you very much. I hope you've got something out of that, and I'll be on the panel later and around later. Thank you.